Welcome back to the OurView Podcast. On today's show, I welcome my guest, Wesley Hamilton. Join us as we discuss the intersectionality of being African American males who live with disabilities, his nonprofit Disabled But Not Really, his experience of being on the Netflix show Queer Eye, and the importance of self love. Um, Before we get started, But again, thank you so very much for agreeing to do this. I truly appreciate it. I'm just really starting out with my podcast in June. And one of the goals that I had was I really wanted to highlight people of color who have disabilities because I still feel that we are underrepresented in that in the world. Our stories don't get told, and we're not out there as much. So I truly appreciate you doing this.
No, I appreciate it too. Yeah, you can go back and forth sometimes with my team, and we try to find like different, I would say when we get reached out for different opportunities, sometimes it's a lot and become overwhelming. And so I remember kind of looking at, just kind of your setup on your page and looking at like what your direction was, and then as well as like looking at your engagement on some of the posts and things. And I remember just telling my publicist that I said, yeah, we don't get a lot of people that are willing to share these stories. And so like for you to just want to begin something makes sense in this time, because this is the time where people is listening more than thinking that they know. And so because there's so much happening, sharing stories that align with, today's issues really makes sense. So yeah, man, it's an honor. Appreciate
Oh,
it.
great. Thank you. I always start off my episodes by asking my guests to introduce themselves, just because I know for me, there's a lot more to me besides my disability.
Yeah.
So I always like to let my guests introduce themselves, so you can share what you would like about who you are as Wesley Hamilton.
Yeah. All right, cool. My name is Wesley Hamilton. I am the executive director of a local Kansas City nonprofit by the name of Disabled But Not Really. I am also an adaptive athlete, speaker, model, influencer, advocate. And then I like to end it with, I really don't care about none of those titles because I'm more than that. I'm just Wesley Hamilton.
Awesome. I like it. I like that a lot. And as I said, I'd like to do that because, for me, a lot of people, I'm also a wheelchair user and I use crutches. And so you can see my disability at times. And a lot of times conversations start with that just because it's visible. So I always like to ask people to introduce themselves because, as you said, you have all of those titles, but you're just Wesley Hamilton. Like that's
Yeah,
really, yeah, that's
yeah.
really, really cool. um,
Awesome.
yeah. So if we could we get into about your diagnosis and what it is, how it occurred and all of that.
Sure. So basically, let's say 8.5 years ago, I was shot multiple times, which caused me to have a spinal cord injury. Um, my gunshot wounds were in my abdomen, and so that's where I sustained my injury. My level of injury is a T11, T12 incomplete spinal cord injury. And yeah, like uh, I know I just kind of surfaced that, but going in depth, it was a verbal altercation that led to a misunderstanding, which eventually put me in this position, for the rest of my life. They're the
Yeah,
best
that's
I could, because I'm pretty sure
yeah.
you might have some questions, and so it's like I don't want to go too much in depth and start to explain it until unless you want, you can
Yeah,
ask some questions.
you definitely you can go into more depth of that if you don't mind.
I mean, because I do truly believe that a lot of people, yeah, I think we do surface those stories a lot, but for people to understand, especially what representation means, and for our community, I will go in depth. I always tell people that, for my whole life, I never really visualized myself being disabled because I wasn't born disabled. So, at the age of 24, um, I'm just going over to an ex-girlfriend's house to talk about a personal situation. It became an engagement that, led to a verbal altercation. This altercation, honestly, be real with you, man, she was going in the house with another dude, bro. I'll be honest. Look, and at that time, I never knew like what my emotions was or how I felt, like what love was or anything. But I was hurt, even though we had ended it several weeks before, I was hurt. And so I always say like my actions and emotions played a lot in that moment, of what caused me to be paralyzed, because I could have left. I could have left when I visualized them going into the house. Instead, 30 minutes later, they're waiting on me to be rushed to the hospital. So within that time of bad choices, and the mindset that I had. So again, I grew up in the inner city, Kansas City, Missouri, and I was in the streets. Like that was my directive. That was what I knew. That's what I was around. So I became a product of my environment. And so my mindset was not of growth. It was not of like reacting different. It was reacting, off of instinct. And so like for me, I had a lot of ego and pride of just who I was and where I come from and living that lifestyle. I think having that negative mindset really, captivates in situations, right? Like
Hmm.
it makes you really feel like you got this rage or this fire that you gotta keep that flame. And so that I remember that day of just being that. I wanted that flame because I was hurt, but I didn't want to be weak in that moment, and honestly the weakness was what led to me being in this position. But at that moment I didn't realize it. So yeah, after the altercation, I honestly thought the situation was done, man. And I started walking back to my car. And that's when I was shot. So I didn't see the man that shot me. The man that actually shot me, I never seen him a day in my life, actually. But I made that environment and that energy so hostile that the person that was inside the house actually called someone over. And so that was how that all transpired. Because it never went man to man, argument. It was a lot of just eyes and probably a lot of intimidation. And again, misunderstanding. They thought I had a gun. So of course, for me, living that lifestyle, I normally would have had a gun, but I just went grocery shopping and it was my birthday weekend. So I was trying to be on something different. But I called someone over that did have one, because I wanted to feel protected. So at first feel like I sugarcoated, but I wanted to go in depth because a lot of that speaks on like my accountability and my growth now. But really want to give people the awareness of like that mindset that you have when you've never seen more of opportunities or anything like that. So yeah, but that's what led me to having this T11, T12 spinal cord injury, which, I'm very humbled about.
Yeah, and I think like you said, it's really important to go into the depth of the story, just to understand. You mentioned something about like the weakness of it all. So at that time you is it that you thought that walking away from that situation would have been a weakness, or
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And I wasn't built on walking away,
Mm-hmm.
and you always stood up and you was a man, that's how it
Right.
was. So uh that's what I believe at that moment. I had to stand my ground. I had to be a man, and walking away I would have felt weak in that position, because I felt powerless to see somebody that I had been with for a while and fell in love with, going into the house with somebody else only after several weeks of us breaking up.
Mm-hmm.
And I was over there to talk about a pregnancy. So let's be
Mm-hmm.
honest. So, like, yeah, it felt for me to leave knowing that I was there talking about something that in my mind I would have to live with for the rest of my life, which, let's be real, it never was a pregnancy. So I literally went over there for nothing. So let me
Oh.
be real on that. So, well, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. It was never a pregnancy. It was a lot of spite that she told me she was pregnant because we broke up. You see, and so seeing that man was really her moving on, but really trying to hold me down too. It was a lot of toxicness that I believe I played a major part in too. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to add, but yeah, walking away would have been weak, man. I've never been a person to walk away, and I've never seen people walk away. And not from the community that I grew up, that wasn't it.
Right. Yeah, that's it's really I really appreciate you going into that, because I think in the world we are in today, we see a lot of violence against people of color, African American men. Um, so I think it's really important to have that discussion in depth, as you just did. So thank you for sharing that. Something else you mentioned was that you said something to the effect of you didn't see yourself as being disabled because you weren't born with the disability. That's really it's really interesting, because even though I was born with a disability, the people I surrounded myself with, my family and my friends, they never really made me feel like I had a disability. They made me see that I had to do things differently. Uh, but I still had to do chores around the house and all of that kind of stuff. So I never really identified as one as having a disability. And then, uh, at 10 or 11 years old, my parents decided to send me to a camp for people with disabilities. And I was like the next day calling them, like, come and get me. I want to go home. because
Oh,
to
really?
yeah, because to me, I was like, I don't have a disability. Like,
Yeah,
these
yeah.
other children here, they need a place like this, but it's not for me. And it
Yeah.
was a 2-week camp, and they made me stay for a week before they came and got me.
Oh man, you were still ready to go. You're
Right.
still ready.
They said, "Well, stay for a week, and if you're ready to go, then we'll come and get you." I said, "I'm sure I will be ready to go, because this is not, it's not for me." So it's
Um,
interesting, how you said that, because you weren't born with a disability, you didn't feel as though you were disabled.
well, and then to add to that, you know, um, especially now as being an advocate for the disabled community, growing up, especially elementary school and uh, any grade school, the kids that had disabilities were separated from the class. So
Right.
you always knew there was something different.
Mm-hmm.
Visually as a kid, I think that's always, as in part of my advocacy, I see that as an issue. I do see it should be out. I do see more improvement of putting people in classrooms and making it more inclusive. But when I was growing up, it was never seen. So I remember, um, I just remember even being told that I was this, paralyzed. Like, it was unreal. Like, that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't something I could believe, because I could never visualize myself being in a position of a limitation, because when I grew up, they always made it seem like it was something wrong. So mentally for me, I was already going in thinking there was a problem. You
Right.
see, and it wasn't like everyone made it normal and like, oh no, it's okay. Like, No, they separated everybody. You had to keep looking straight. You couldn't ask questions. Like, honestly, we should have asked questions, but at that time, it was like, oh, don't do this, don't do that. You know how the stigmas go.
Mm-hmm.
And so finding out that I was paralyzed really shifted, everything into like that depression stage and all, because I couldn't accept it. But I will say, because I speak about it a lot, I believe that I was mentally disabled before I became physically, meaning the growth and the mindset that I have today, I would have never acquired if I didn't become paralyzed, because of being a product of my environment only allowed me the limitations that system had designed for me to acquire. Like and from knowledge and things, I would have really had to step out my box and get to those things to seek that growth, but none of that was available or seen or having that representation in those communities to see it. So when I got in this position and you see who I am today and what I'm doing, man, I'm grateful for being in this position because it woke me up.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's like a full circle moment kind of thing. It's just it really from one, yeah, it really tells a great journey and a great story because, as you said, even for me having a disability, uh, I was still in all of my classes with all of my classmates, so I wasn't separated. But there were, those who were separated from everyone else. So, so that was another thing I think that played into my mindset of, oh, I don't have a disability, because I'm still with everybody else,
Yeah.
and that also played a part in me creating this my OurView company, because you don't, as you mentioned, you don't get to ask questions. You have to, don't pay attention to them, look ahead, look straight ahead, and all that kind of stuff, as you mentioned. So it's allowing students now to have me come into the classroom and get to ask questions to me, I think is really something different that they don't, that I didn't have the experience to have, and as you mentioned, you didn't have it as well.
And I love talking to kids, and I do that a lot, just because of the questions they ask. And it's like, man, and when you answer it, you're like, oh my God, what have I just done to redesign the rest of, this child's life? Because now a child will never see something wrong. Will always see something more. And it's like, man, yeah. So I'm always open to answering questions. I actually love answering questions now.
I do too. It doesn't bother me at all. And I actually I recorded an episode for someone else's podcast yesterday, and they asked me what was the craziest question that you've ever have been asked by a student. And I said, I can't feel below my knees. So one of the students asked, well, if you were ever around lava, would you be able to feel it? If your foot got in lava, would you ever be able to feel it? And I'm like, no, I like the way you think, but no, I still wouldn't be able to feel it because I can't feel my feet. So, no matter how hot or cold it is, I still wouldn't be able to feel it. But it's like, the mind of, a fifth grader is like really interesting. So,
Very,
but
very.
yeah. So you mentioned when you introduced yourself about disabled, but not really. Can you talk more about that? How you uh, came to form that, where the name came from, which I love a lot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, appreciate it. So um disabled but not really. All right, here's the story. Story with it. All right, so when I first got paralyzed, of course I go into depression. I go into this stage of not accepting. I couldn't accept it. So, I had that depression. I wanted to get back to being normal, and I couldn't accept this new normal, basically. So by the end of my first year of, not caring, not doing what I needed to do, when it comes to pressure releases, when it came to, um, just even get offloading. Like, man, I would sit in my chair all day and just soak in it. Basically, I hated it. I didn't want to cast myself. I didn't want to do anything. I just hated it. And so that led to me having a pressure ulcer on my tailbone by the end of my first year. And again, I'm like, man, this little bitty sore. So, I'm not caring about it at all. So I go into like a couple months of really just being careless, where it gets to like a stage 4. So now they got me where I'm doing 21 hours a day bed rest. Like, man, I'm trying to get back into life. And like, man, because of where it was and the way I kept and how bad it was. So I had a wheelchair that linked. It was just a bad wheelchair. You know how that would be.
Yeah.
And so at that time, it was my first wheelchair. So I really wasn't, knowing like what a wheelchair should feel like or whatever. Right. So I just hopped in it. Well, it wasn't really angled right for my posture. So it kept causing me to really cause that pressure. And so I had to stay off of it. I had wound vacs. They gave me a colostomy. Like, man, I was going through all this for like 2 years. Like, I'm defeated. Like, I'm telling you. And like, I really don't know what to do. Like, honestly, I'm just lost for words. I got the PIC line because I had to get the IVs and have the nurses coming in every day. Like, this is like, man. Yeah, I'm feeling the disability, right? Like I'm feeling the debilitation. I used to tell people I was confined to 4 walls for a long time. Like I would literally look at my walls every day and I would just hate the situation, suicidal thoughts, like defeat, like beating my legs up because I just like, man, why are they here? Like, why he didn't finish this job? Like that went on for about 2 years. So what happened? All right, this is what happened. In the midst of all of this, I'm still a father. So I know I didn't throw that out at the beginning, but when I first got injured, I had just got sole custody of my daughter. And I try to use that last just because how my story goes and you listen to everything I've been through, but to know I was a father through it all, so like as soon as, I'm waking up and I got this little girl I got to raise that I just got custody of. And so I really didn't know how to accept that or how she could accept me. So I'm learning how to be strong for her in these positions. And so even though I'm weak and I'm defeated, I still wanted to be strong. And she was a kid, a real, so it was like, you going swimming, you going to the park, and I can't do that. And I wanted to do that. I wanted that joy. And so because I wanted that joy, I asked the doctor one day, I said, man, what can I do to heal my body? Like, what can I do to get this wound to heal? And he said, add more protein in your diet, and that would help. And that started off with them giving me like a wound healing like drink called like Rejuven, I think. And then it was like another one called Ensure with the protein. And I couldn't drink Ensure because my grandma drank it. And so like mentally, I'm like, man, old people drink this drink and I can't drink this stuff. I'm stuck on it. This is about, this about to be life. But then, and the other drink was like something that you had to put in water. I've never been a fan of those drinks. Like I've never been a fan of something that you got mixed with water. Just never.
Right.
So I'm like, what do I do? And again, at this point, so I'm only like 5'4" or 5'5". I'm overweight. So I'm about 250. And I say overweight because I'm short. And when I'm, walking, I always tell people walking wasn't a problem. But sitting in a chair and really being heavy and not accepting like me being heavy, because I had never accepted it walking. I was just like this big, I was in the streets, man. You weren't about to talk about it. So like I mentally was like, man, I'm a big dude. I'm king shit, basically. Honestly, that was the mindset. So now I'm in this chair. I'm sitting awkward. I'm dealing with all these heat rashes. I'm dealing with all of this stuff that's dealing with my weight, And so when the doctor told me to add protein in my diet, I'm like, man, how do I do this? Because I don't even eat healthy. I think I told somebody a double quarter pounder with cheese. That was what I, mentally thought could be. Is that protein? Like that was my question. You know what I mean? Like that's food, right? So I end up going to a local community college. Man, I don't know how this got into my mindset to do this, and but I did. So I went to community college, took up a dietitian course. And so I learned nutrition on a whole different scale. I always tell people when I opened that book up, it blew my mind of all the things I never learned about food. And I fell in love with it because it was the right thing about food and not the wrong thing. And I had always grew up knowing sweets and candy and chips and this, but also of living in food deserts and things like that. We only ate what we had access to. And not knowing that it was another way of eating that made you feel good, you know, made you be active, made you lose. So it's like I started reading this, and I think the biggest thing that shifted my mindset was when I seen how much sugar was in soda. Right? Like I drank Dr. Pepper every day. Like that was like my go-to. If I was mad, give me a Dr. Pepper and a honey boo. That was me all day. And I remember just looking at how much sugar was in a can to a 20 ounce and so on. And it like disgusted me because I was always that sweet tea guy that got us some sugar sometimes and throw it in my tea. But I was always mindful that I wouldn't just be throwing it. Well, hell, when I seen all that sugar, it was like they was just throwing it. And I was like, you know, so like, man, you know, so I started drinking water. And fast forward to a year later of just eating healthy, I would go to a local rehab. They had a machine called a New Step. And I liked the New Step because I could hook my legs up to it and use my hands, but it really moved my whole body. So it was like a cardio machine. And since I couldn't get out, I only had 3 hours a day to get out the bed. So mind you, so I would drive about 30 minutes back and forth to community college. I spent about 30, 45 minutes in just a class. That was my way of being social and getting into society because I still couldn't accept being in this wheelchair, right? Like I had this colostomy, I had this wound back on, but I'm still going to school. Like I'm dealing with all these defeats that make me insecure, but I'm still trying to be more. And so by my last surgery, I was shot January 2012 because I like my timeline. By my last surgery, January 2015, I was 100 pounds lighter. Dude, I never lost weight when I was walking. I was 135 pounds. And I remember having shoes and clothes on. And I remember looking at the doctor and said, so that means I'm about 130 because these clothes probably about 5 pounds. I was so proud of myself, right? Like, but it was mind blowing. It was mind blowing because I could never do it walking. I never had the willpower to do something that I just, man, I thought I was big boned. I thought it was a real thing. Like, dude, I really thought it was a real thing. So I remember after that, I had 6 weeks of healing on this bed called a Clinitron bed. And so 6 weeks, but at this time I'm eating healthy. So I remember getting my own little mini refrigerator in there. I had my meal prep. I was doing my thing, right? Like, and I remember taking a picture like in a hospital. I wish I could find this picture, but I wasn't still mentally all where I am today. So a lot of my old social media might have been negative. So I had to get rid of. But I remember taking a picture and hashtagging disabled but not really. And like all my like family and friends, and you know, because at this time I was skinny, man. I had a skinny face. I think it was like I was in the little gym and I had little abs, little baby abs. Cause I was so skinny, and I remember just saying disabled but not really. And you know, and it was just like a positive feedback from just my family and friends. And so as I was sitting in that bed, I started researching like, how can I help other people with disabilities feel like I feel at that moment, right? Like that was it. Because like my mindset of being defeated was because I thought that was real. I thought that defeating a disabled community was something that was normal, right? Because that's what I had visualized. Maybe because I wasn't surrounded by people with disabilities all the time. So when I did see them, it was at the hospital. It was maybe at like, you know, it was always the wrong representation, especially for somebody coming from where I come from. Like I was just defeated. And I'm like, man, now, hell, I can help so many people. I don't know where it came from, because trust me, in the streets, I helped, but I wasn't like that friendly now. And this was like, a mind like really changed. Like I overcame not only my physical disability at this moment, I overcame that mental disability that I lived with my whole life, of not really thinking that I could go after what I believed in. And this is something that I felt like I needed. And when I went after it, I succeeded, right? And that
Mm-hmm.
really like changed everything. And that's how the organization started. I created my logo. I registered for it all in that hospital bed. And when I got out,
Wow.
that's when I started to now do my like community work and let people know exactly what that meant, because I knew that I had to define disabled but not really if people wanted to understand that. The first part was the nutrition, right? Like the overcoming of the mindset, the willingness to accept now of who I am, because I had did something I never could do walking. So you don't think I'm gonna accept this? Hell yeah. Care about my
Mm-hmm.
skinny legs no more, man. It's chest and chicken legs right now. You know what I mean? But I'm cool with it, you know? And so it was like me overcoming that. I did want to go and seek and help everybody else, and I knew I could define it. And so, yeah, that's how Disabled But Not Really started. And then just the whole mission now is more or less of, to instill a physical limitless mindset to those that are physically, mentally, or emotionally disabled. And then I always I always go back to when I talk about mentally, I talk about the inner city mindsets, right? The mindset that I overcame, right? Like when I think about disabled, not really, I didn't just overcome this physical limitation.
Right.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
something that I would never seen. I'm something that my mom, my dad, my grandma didn't see, right? Because I'm the first of anything. You see what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
in my family on a different scale, right? Like I'm this creator making things happen. Like this is something that nobody's seen. So I became that for everybody else around me, which has helped shape and change my community one by one as well. And so yeah, Disabled Not Really, man. This is what we're about.
That's awesome. And to think that it came from, all that you had been through, and, having the setback of the pressure sore, and all of that, and just, and then just having that one day where you're just like, okay, like, hey, I'm disabled, but not really. Like, that's really cool.
Like
Wow.
you can't tell me that I'm limited when I just did something that I know walking I challenged and battled. So how many other people that are able challenge and battle this? So what's the limitation? Is it a limitation? Is it our mindsets that are limited? Or is it something that people visualize? Because now I've done something which allows me to now be motivated to do more. Like I never worked out till I became paralyzed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then 2 years into that, after my surgery, I was an award-winning adaptive athlete, competing in bodybuilding and CrossFit nationwide. How does that happen? You see what I mean? Like I'm climbing
Wow.
ropes in a wheelchair. Bro, I ain't never seen a rope that you could
Right.
climb before I got in a wheelchair. But that will and that ambition and that understanding that people can see something of a limitation. Nah, it's up here. See, the
Mm-hmm.
limitation that they've already seen is the one that they thought that I had. You
Right.
see, when people visualize the less in you, that's the less in them. That's what I learned a long time ago. So I don't go off the feed of people telling me what I can't do, because I know I've done so much more than they've ever done. And nobody
Mm-hmm.
can understand your struggle, your battle. But when you overcame a mindset that would have led you to being dead or in jail if you never got in a position like this, and then you overcome that mindset of being defeated and lacking of acceptance in a community that does not represent you well,
Wow.
overcome that to be something that now allows people to see that representation in a positive way and not a negative way, even though I define all stereotypes.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you better tell me. I'm just saying, man. That's my fuel
Wow.
every day. That's what motivates me and gets me going. It's
Mm-hmm.
knowing that the mental mindset that a lot of people have is what freed me. Is when I overcame that. It didn't matter this. It was just the mindset.
Wow.
Perception is power. The way you see your life is the way you live it.
That's so true. Oh my gosh. Wow. The one thing I want to go back to with disabled but not really, and even which is part of your own story, is the nutrition part.
Yeah.
um, for me personally, I discussed it in my first episode of my podcast where, I talked about not not being able to eat a lot of things because my body, my system just doesn't handle a lot of things well. So it is, as you mentioned, the double quarter pounder with cheese. Like, it's easier for me to eat that because I know how my body will respond to that, rather than eating the salad and, all the vegetables and things like that. It's just, it's just how nature works. And so it's just really, it's important that someone like you who has a disability that is, helping others, with the nutrition part of it, because it's hard to work out. And sometimes, your body doesn't want you to work out, and you're tired or you're achy or whatever. And just to, to have that part of your nonprofit, I think it's really, really important.
The obesity is a problem in the disabled community.
Mm-hmm.
And where the problem lies, and here goes my advocate, here's Wesley. But no, where the problem lies, man, is just that everyone sees your limitation and they do not see what you can do. So they want to be so cautious on you to be active. Like, I don't want to play sports, bro. I ain't never played sports in my life. So, like, you telling me go shoot a basketball? I mean, I didn't work out either, but it's easy to lift weights than you trying to shoot. Bro, I've been teased on the court even to this day because I can't shoot, bro, and I'm okay with that.
Right.
But you cannot give me just that one avenue, right, that does not allow me to be strong, does not allow me to be healthy, and then also in our community, there's a lot that deals with medicine, right? Like, I got a blog, I love to write, right? Like, so I got a personal blog on my website. And I got a blog that says it was not the depression, it was the medicine. You know what I mean? Because I'm not on medicine today. And you see how positive and happy I am. Do I still go through my chronic pain? Hell yes. Do I learn how to deal with it mentally? Hell yes. Because now I know that if I eat right, if I'm exercising, and if I'm mentally healthy, most likely I can handle the pain. You see what I'm saying? Like, if I'm drinking enough water, most likely I can handle it. I've kind of literally figured out where my pain comes from, how long my pain lasts. So I'm not going to allow a minute of something hard defeat me for 24 hours.
Right.
No, I just get quiet and start talking when I'm done. Like, and my family and my friends and my colleagues, they know that now. Even when I go speak, I let them know, look, I deal with chronic pain. If I'm speaking, I'm feeling it, cool. But if I'm speaking and I can't handle it, I might go pause for a minute, but I'm coming right back. Don't ask me I'm okay, because I'm great.
Right.
It's something I got to deal with, and so it's like having that ability to really teach people the difference. Like, now I got PTs and OTs and like, oh, and they're using me as that reference and looking at these new avenues. Well, these are new. This is not the old book. So I think with Disabled Not Really, we're able to rewrite the book, but also we're rewriting the book with the right representation that a whole demographic, at least half of the disabled community that looks like you and I, don't get a chance to see. When I'm on boards and when I'm sitting there at tables, I don't see a lot of people that look like me and you that's representing the disabled community.
Right.
I see my voice and then maybe a few others, but not when you at the head table, the directors, the CEOs. Now, we got advocates, but in the Black community, period, we're still talking ownership. And that's what we don't have a lot when you think about the voices. And the voices can only be heard if you have that certain position to help amplify it. And I think that that's what Disabled But Not Really does, is amplifies the representation in these communities that lack it. And it's showing people how to overcome their mental challenges. No matter if your mental challenge is part of your limitations that are physical, knowing that you can free yourself mentally will literally lift you up no matter what limitations that you have physically. That's it. And I tell people all the time, I'm walking. I mean, you
Yeah.
might see me rolling, but I'm walking. You know, like I'm free over here.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, your chair is really it really is freeing. It does allow you to do a lot, and like that. Wow. I'm 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 a little bit blown away by this conversation. I'm loving it. So uh, I came to know about you through a friend of mine. She told me about the episode of Queer Eye that you were on, and I was really, I was glad to see someone of color on a show like that, and someone of color who has a disability. Um, can you talk about what what your experience was with the show, and some things that they helped you learn about yourself?
I mean, me being on this journey already of like acceptance, and I was already at a point of knowing who I was and getting
Hmm.
to, that positive mindset. So I remember getting reached out from the show. And of course, my first thought coming from where I come from, like, oh my God, like, hell, I even fit in the show with five gay guys. Like, I remember having to go watch it and just see if I align right. Cause I mean,
Hmm.
I'm a realist, man. Like I believe, like I always stay solid. I live by codes. I live by morals. That's probably the street in me. And so, like for me, it was more like I didn't want a platform just to put my face on. I wanted a platform that actually made an impact for my community because I know that where I am right now, I don't see a lot of people in my community getting there. So, like, I was always looking at the bigger picture. And I
Hmm.
seen how, I remember looking at the Jones sisters video. They had from Kansas City, and it was the most, I mean, a lot of their episodes were heartwarming, but it was the most heartwarming, heartfelt episode that I ever seen in my life. Like, I don't know if you've seen that one, but they basically fixed her teeth, and they went in
Hmm.
and she had, the lady, she would never smile. And I see that in my community so much of, that lack of confidence. And even though she was successful, she just always did cover her face, and they fixed it and she smiled. She still smiles to this day. And I was like, nothing else on that show mattered but that, like that confidence that you seen just making a difference in somebody's life. And I was like, and I started looking around, I'm like, okay, maybe this can align with me. And the person I am today was not the person I used to be. So I was more open-minded to
Hmm.
opportunities as well. And so, yeah, so they come in and of course they work out on different elements from home to clothing to like mindset to grooming. And so of course I'm all for it. I'm all for it. I remember us cutting my hair. I had long cornrows, and
Hmm.
the last day I had my hair cut was the day I got shot. So it was like, it was a lot of weight that I was holding on to that. Of course, I'm trying to get it back out now. I love my hair, but um, yeah, so it was like trying to release that, and then too, being in a wheelchair, even though I was gaining this confidence, I always wore fitness clothes because I never knew that we could really dress nice. Again, you didn't see a lot of that representation. You see it a little bit now, but still, I could dress in certain clothes and it's still kind of awkward,
Right.
um, and because of that, they just showed me how to kind of have that confidence, which opened up me to be a model. So I mean, it was cool. And then, but I think the whole experience, man, of just being on that show was because I had never seen myself surrounded by five gay men. And but what I seen being open minded was that they wasn't five gay men; they were just five free men, right? Like they
Hmm.
were free because they had already accepted who they were, and they were okay with showing that to the world, despite how the world seen them. And see, when I'm a black man with a disability and I represent two communities, it was more me being open-minded and seeing that and what can I learn from y'all? Because I have to accept this because the world sees these two different things I represent sometimes the wrong way,
Hmm.
right? So it was like, that was my mindset going into the show. And it was like, okay, let's keep it going. Let's do this. Let's do that. And and yeah, so I mean, what I gained was being free. I would say by the end of the show, I was free. there was no way I was not free after that. Like, there
Mm-hmm.
was like, I mean, I had already prepared myself and got to a position. But the ultimate freedom was the moment I was able to forgive myself by looking at the man that shot me and telling him thank you. I was not going in to forgive him, and so but again, with everything and how that episode transpired, it was like all of this was just a plan that was supposed to take place.
Mm-hmm.
I remember my first initial interview with Queer Eye. I ended that interview with saying he gave me life and he tried to take my life. And and that was my affirmation I would use every day, because I had accepted the life that I have now, and I had realized that it was never like something bad. Like, man, I was bad. I look at karma, I believe in it. Hell, what if those 3-4 years of defeat was me getting kicked in the ass for always being hard-headed? I'm okay with that, because the life I have now is great, right? Like, it don't matter with the success or anything. It's just the happiness I have, the
Right.
freedom I have, right? Like, that's what makes me feel good. That's what he gave me, was freedom. See,
Mm-hmm.
took me from the mental chains that I was always strapped on to my whole life. Like, you free me, and the only way I could be free that through that was witnessing 5 men that also face that discrimination for who they are, and the fight that they have on being, showing who they are and being proud of it, but accepting who they are, so they really don't care how people see
Right.
them. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's and I do remember you that in that episode you saying you hadn't had your hair cut uh since the day that you had got shot, and that was really, that was powerful to see, and like you said, carrying the weight of all of that for all those years, and to see how it transformed you and helped with freeing you from that day.
Oh yeah. No, man, it was, I mean, the day I met the man that shot me, man, I lost my one of my closest cousins early that morning due to diabetes. And so a lot of people don't know that, man. I could not grieve that whole day. We had filmed my haircut and we had filmed me meeting Maurice that night. I was literally 30 minutes before I wanted to call it quits. Like, I was
Wow.
hurting. I was hurting, but that was when I knew that something more powerful was in me, and my purpose in life was not to be defeated by that adversity, but to actually feed into it and know that all great things do not happen unless we are tested. And sometimes the tests that we get faced with might be one of the hardest tests in our lives. And
Hmm.
that test that life give us, it honestly is one that we don't expect. You think I
Right.
expected to lose my cousin and get a call at 6 a.m. when my father knew I was filming for a Netflix show?
Hmm.
Like, no, I did not. And I think that's strength. I prayed maybe 30 minutes before, and I just asked my cousin, I said, be with me. Be with me. I remember rolling into that shop, and I know everyone's seeing like the tense look on my face, and I'm like, I was bothered. I just got done crying, actually.
Hmm.
And I was crying in the car with Karamo. Like, I was literally like, oh my God, I could not hold it. And when I went in, I felt every angel around me.
Wow.
Like, nah, man, you about to do this. They ain't seen, this ain't never happened
Hmm.
where two black men can look at each other and one can say, look, I get it. I accept this because I took accountability of my actions. In the world that we live in today, that mattered. That message mattered. It don't matter if 1 or 2 people get it. It don't matter. But if that can change them and cause a ripple effect to help them react different to situations or start taking accountability of their own faults instead of blaming, because we all don't need to be victims. You
Hmm.
know, the moment of being free is the moment that you accept all things that happen to you in life. And that's real. It doesn't matter if I didn't I didn't wake up and choose to be black, but I am, right? Like, I am, and I'm proud of it. right? Despite the adversity, despite anything, I'm proud of it. And so, like, you know, it's just it's that, you know, you have to be able to be proud despite the adversity of who you
Mm-hmm.
are or what you face, you know. And I think that that's just, yeah, man. I mean, no matter, you wake up and, you know, life goes on, you know. We can't allow certain situations to control us. Instead, we use those situations to control that situation, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And that's the mindset. That's the mindset. But
Right. Yeah. Well, my the next question I had was to ask you about how self-love, resilience, and change have played a role in your life and impacted your life. And I think you have effectively said all of that already. So,
you know, but if I can, I could just say self love. You know,
yes.
just I wanted people to love me when I never loved myself. I went my whole life feeling that way. I was always seeking love and never could look in a mirror and be happy with the person I saw. And so, you know, if I want to add to self love, is that every time I look in the mirror, I love every damn speck of me. And so, like, you know, it doesn't matter my limitation, doesn't matter how I feel, it doesn't matter, but I love it. I love it. I love the adversity that I face. I love, like, the, you know, I love it. And so when I talk self-love, you have to love every damn thing about you, because loving that will always allow you not to face, when you face that adversity, when you face those looks, when you face those, you know, those bad vibes or people saying this or saying that, you always can look back at yourself and be like, man, but you don't know me though. And
Right.
it ain't no
Right. That's a
you
good one.
know, you know, hey, and I love me. I don't, I'm not asking you to love me. I love me, you
Hmm.
know, and so that's it. And if I, as long as, and instead, so yeah, so focus on loving you and not looking for someone to love you, for you to love you. It
Wow.
has to start with you first.
Hmm. I totally agree, and that is, that's a struggle for a lot of people, regardless if they have a disability or not. Um, it is. It's a definite struggle, and you know, uh, the opinions of others, having that not matter is, a bit difficult for people to handle. So I think that's a very important message to spread for sure. Um, so the last question I have that I like to end my episodes with is, what do you want the world to know about people who live with disabilities?
Oh man. Well, I would like the world to know about people who live with disabilities. That we're not different. I mean, that's number one. We're not different. We're not different. I don't think nobody's supposed to look the same. I don't think something should be, you know, it's not normalized. Like, what is normal, right? Like, and so I think my first thing would be to let the world know that, you know, people with disabilities, they're not different. We're unique. We all have stories that maybe you should listen to, learn from the adversity that we faced in life, you know, grow from it. Um, and because I think that people with disabilities are powerful. The world should know that we're superheroes in our own way, because um, we have to battle things that some will never face. We have to battle not only acceptance, but of ourselves. We have to battle wondering if society is going to accept us. We have to face lack of accessibility in places. Like, our adversity extends so far that we should never be seen as something less, because
Hmm.
our battle in life puts us way past anyone else. We are so much more than what people see us as. And so the world should see us as so much more. Without that, we can never be more, because of the limitations that society sees. So my message, all to sum it up, We're not different. We're no different than you. And so love us because we love you too.
Yeah. That was great. I love that message. Thank you so much for that. That was really really cool. So to wrap all of this up, where can the listeners find you on social media to follow you, and your website or any of your social media?
Oh yeah. So disabled but not really. Let's start with that. It's just how it sounds. It's not spelled any different. Disabled but not really.org, and then on all social media is just disabled but not really. My personal platform is I am Wes Hamilton. If you find anything that like says I am Wes, it's probably me. I have a personal, I have a speaking page. Like I really try to switch it up because I don't like the titles, but I do so many things that I do like to separate my platforms, because some people might be motivated by the speaking Wes. Some people could be motivated by the athlete Wes, and so it could be so many different things. But if you need to just have one resource to where you can find me, go to IamWesleyHamilton.com, and everything is literally there. You can learn more about my story. You can see publications and editorials that I've been involved in. You can read my personal blog just to learn about my early struggles to today's advocacy. But yes, my journeys are all over. And one of my biggest things is, if you really want to know about Wesley Hamilton and you don't want to do none of that, just Google me.
Google always works for sure.
Yes.
Well, Wes, thanks for this opportunity to speak with you and to share your story. I truly appreciate it. As as we talked about, I want to definitely use this platform to share the story of people of color and their disabilities, their journeys, and I truly appreciate this opportunity to speak with you. I have learned so much, and you have definitely inspired me and encouraged me to keep going. And so I really appreciate you taking the time for this interview today.
Oh, no, I appreciate you. I mean, this is what we got to do. This is how we feed each other's energy. Keep doing what you're doing. Remember too, as with you and your platform, it's not about like, just believe in what you're doing and it makes an impact. Okay. So don't look at the outside views. Don't look at the outside looks of it. Just keep pushing out these positive messages and allow your heart and what you believe in to really help you gravitate to wherever you're trying to go. Whatever you're manifesting, it takes work. And so the work you're putting in now will pay off. And so this is just that, give you that insight, man. Keep doing it.
Again, thank you again, and you enjoy the rest of your day, and I will definitely be in touch.
No problem. I truly appreciate you, and again, keep going after it. And it's an honor to just be able to share my story on your platform.
All right, thank you so much, and have a good day, and we'll talk soon.
All right, you too.
All right, bye-bye. Thank you for listening to this episode of the OurView Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the OurView Podcast on Anchor, Apple Podcast, or Spotify. New episodes will be released on the 15th and 30th of every month. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at OurView for Life. That's OurView, the number 4, LIFE. Do you want to help change the tone of conversation among your family and friends? Head over to our website for some OurView merchandise. Our website is www.our-view.com/merchandise. I thank you for listening. Have a great day and take care.